What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Phaithful Phanatics Show live here on DSM-Media's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter channels. Guys, if you are new to the channel, make sure to check us out on Twitter, or soon to be X, apparently first, at DSM_Media. Hit that follow button. We greatly appreciate it. While you're over on the page, make sure to check out the link tree in our bio. It will take you to every social media platform we are available on. If you guys want to be interactive throughout this morning's show or any of our shows here at DSM, subscribe to the new YouTube channel. So for this one and for all of our DSM pregame lives, make sure to check out the DSM-Media Philadelphia YouTube channel that we're streaming live on right now. Hit that subscribe button for tomorrow night's show and all throughout the NFL season. Make sure to check us out at the NFL-Turf Talk YouTube channel. And also don't forget to check my man Scotty's DSM-Media Scotty Talks NBA YouTube channel. My man, happy hump day, favorite day of the week. What's going on?
Yes, sir. Happy hump day, man. We've hit the midweek shuffle, right? We're trying to get through the dog days of summer right now because I don't know. There's just something about that summer sun shining in and waking up in early in the morning to talk these sports. But I'm happy to be here, man. Happy to talk about the Phillies. Hopefully, calm some people down. And then talk some Eagles, which is incredibly exciting. Of course,
I know. Merry Christmas, right?
The best content season is football season, man. It's the best time of the year. So
absolutely,
it's arriving. So yeah, I'm happy, man. I'm happy to be here. Happy to.
I don't know why it's been so difficult to wake up the last week and a half or so. Like you said, you just got back from Vegas, from like half a week in Vegas. I was on almost 3 straight weeks of vacation with 5 days in between. So you come back from all of that and you're like, man, what are we going to get into today? But a win like last night's win for our Phillies make mornings like this a little easier.
Yeah,
and the
absolutely.
start of the Mecca, right? The start of what we all want to get into, being the Eagles. It's back to work this morning as well. Nick Sirianni will speak live to the media shortly after we get off here on the show. So we'll all go over and check that out, obviously. Then they get into their first practice this morning, man. So on today's show, we're going to talk about this little Phillies rough patch, this little stretch that they've been on. They try to avoid losing their 3rd straight series tonight against the Orioles, but they had a huge walk-off, basically 2-out rally last night at the bank to come back and beat the best team in the American League. So we're going to talk about that, of course. And then what are we looking for to start Eagles camp? What headlines, what position group battles, what are we looking for as they start camp today? We're going to get into that later on in the show, man. But let's start with Bryson Stott, Alec Boehm, the daycare, the Phillies last night, obviously down to their last 2 outs. Bryce Harper on first base, and Bryson Stott goes first pitch swinging and puts one into the right field corner. Harper scores from first. He was moving, obviously got thrown out at home plate the night before that from first or second base. So he was obviously very motivated to get there last night. And then just 2 batters later, it was still with 2 outs. Alec Boehm puts one into left field through the hole, and the Phillies walk it off. They were losing 3-2 down to their final out last night. Huge, man. For a multitude of reasons, right? They were starting to lose, not us, but they were starting to lose some of the fan base again. What's going on, Brett? They were starting to that conversation was starting to circle about this not being a playoff team, and playoff teams don't lose these kind of games. And guys, listen, I know it feels like they haven't won a game since the All-Star break, but they're 6-6 or 7-6 now since the All-Star break, something like that. So they're actually treading water. They're actually okay right now against a very difficult schedule since coming out of the break, with a chance to win a series tonight against the best team in the American League, like I said. Yeah. And then you have what we call the attention, right? The attention drama going on again, because it's kind of been this vicious cycle. the last couple months in Philly sports of the Sixers were lucky that the Eagles were winning and on because they would have everybody going nuts. Then the Phillies were lucky at the beginning of the season because the Sixers were heading into the playoffs and they were different and they had them to take attention away. Well, the Phillies started this spiral and now they're lucky that the Eagles are back on, right? So last night was huge for a multitude of reasons, like I said, but none bigger than kind of just we're going to be okay. And I don't, that's not just for the fan base, that's for the team. Because, Scotty, I'll throw this to you. I think we agree with our fellow Philly fans in a minor way. Like, I'm frustrated with the day-to-day stuff. I'm frustrated with the night-to-night stuff.
Yeah.
Meaning, I get it, guys. I'm frustrated with Rob Thompson's lineup sometimes. I'm frustrated with Trey Turner. I'm frustrated with this offense when Zach Wheeler throws one-run baseball, right, on an error.
Yeah.
I'm frustrated sometimes. But you can't take that frustration in July and apply it to kind of that totality form. They're not a playoff team. They're not for real. They blah, blah, blah. They're 7 games over 500, Scotty.
It is funny, man. It's funny, the overreaction, because if you looked at the Phillies last year at this time, and once again, this isn't saying they're just going to get hot as the sun in, October and September, but they have the capability to, and that's all that really matters. You just have to stay afloat during the regular season, make it to the playoffs, and then we know the Phillies are a playoff caliber team. I think one positive, coming out of this weekend, Bryce Harper is getting back to form. You mentioned him getting around the bases. He cranks one out last night to tie the game early on. He's been, getting his clutch hitting back, right? He's been in the big spots, coming up big. So it's good to see him coming back to form. Obviously playing first base about as well as you could expect a guy coming off Tommy John surgery. He's been playing lights out. But I get, like you said, the night-to-night struggles. When you're losing a series to Cleveland after losing a series to the Brewers, it gets frustrating. Like, yes, it is frustrating. But at the same time, you're looking at the Brewers. They're first in the NL Central. The Cleveland Guardians, they're second in the AL Central. And then you went 3-1 against the Padres, who are fourth in the NL West. So, like, you've done pretty well. Like, obviously, like you said, it's 6-6 since the All-Star break, but these are good teams that we're playing against.
Correct.
The Padres, yes, they're a very underwhelming team this year, but they still have a ton of talent on that roster. They still have a ton of talent in that lineup. So those are good wins. It's almost like those are overlooked since the All-Star break. But then, of course, yes, you lose the series against the Brewers and you lose the series against the Guardians, which you're in. I believe you were in Cleveland against the Guardians as well. So it's not the end of the world. It's not what you want from this span against teams that are potential playoff teams right now in the playoff picture. But at the same time, you're staying afloat, and you did split with the AL leader right now in the Orioles. So you have a chance to win this series. Like, you have a chance to win this series. And if they beat the Orioles in this series 2-1, how do things look? They look just fine.
Right.
Right.
But
like
that's
it's not the end of the world right now, man.
That's kind of our message, man. Like, I get it. Like, we come on here 3 days a week. You're on social media every day. I know it's hard not to react and overreact to what you see on a night-to-night basis because we love our sports teams and we live and die by our sports teams. But too many people in this fan base treat a 162-game season like a 17-game, once a week Eagles season.
Yeah.
Like an 82-game 76er season. Like, you can't overreact to shit in May, in June, in July, because what you just said wraps it up perfectly. What happens if they win today?
Yeah.
So 24 hours ago, 48 hours ago, it's all rah, we're not a playoff team. Topper should be fired. We need this change. Dombrowski's not going to do anything because they lost 2 series to 2 good teams. But now what happens if they win a series versus the best team in the AL? Are we back in?
Right. Like you can't flip
this
flop like
roller
that. That's the
coaster
problem.
is too steep. It's too long of a ride to get so amped up over every single thing that happens.
Yeah.
And listen, I know because there's going to be people that say, well, of course you're positive when they win last night and we didn't do a show after the loss. So I get it. Like, but again, you just can't take the little things and kind of make these, these exclamations about them, these declarations about them. Like, I understand that Jesus Christ. So Nick Castellanos is what, 9 for his last 80 or something like that.
He's been
Since the All-Star,
swinging, man.
Hitting his average is under 280 or right around 280. He was hitting over 315 around 315 at the break. He's hitting
All-Star break
he's hitting like under 190 in the second half, if not a lot worse. Trey Turner, again, we know what happened 2 nights ago. The first game against Baltimore, 2 errors in the field, strikes out, gets ejected, been horrible, was no better last night, right? 0 for 4 with a strikeout. I'm frustrated about him. I'm frustrated about Rob Thompson trotting out AAA lineups like the first game against Baltimore at times. But that does not declare what this team is, as we head into the postseason. And you can't help but scoreboard watch, and you can't help but look at how these standings are playing out, and whether they're in that third wild card or just slightly out, and they're tied for that third wild card. They're within 1 or half a game from the top wild card spot.
Yeah.
Do you know who sits in that wild card spot? And they're fun, man. I get it. They're fun. They're exciting. They got the new stud. They got the new young stud in baseball. The Cincinnati Reds are the first wild card. Yep. The Arizona Diamondbacks, the San Francisco Giants, the Miami Marlins. There's a difference between those 4 teams and the Philadelphia Phillies. Do you know what that is? One is a legit playoff and championship contender.
Yeah.
And the other 4 are not. So, hey, maybe you don't have any faith in the Phillies to step up to the plate in August. Maybe you are a little higher on these other teams than I am. I'm going to go out on a limb here, Scotty, and tell our listeners and our fellow Philly fan base that the Philadelphia Phillies are going to be the number 1 wild card seed as we get into the postseason. And that's how confident I am. And that's how confident I am that you shouldn't overreact, man.
One thing that I will say, just to, I guess, add some credibility to the frustration, because to your point, it is overreaction. And I think part of being a baseball fan, which is fairly new for me, just to be completely honest, is trying to weather the storm and not overreact throughout a 162 game season.
Absolutely.
It's unlike any other season. I mean, it's unlike any other sport when it comes to that many games. With that being said, one thing I do find frustrating with this team, Dylan, is just the low output sometimes of this lineup. And, the way we talk about this lineup on a night-to-night basis and the stars, the names that we have in it, you mentioned Castellanos struggles, Trey Turner struggles. It flabbergasts me sometimes that we can only muster up 1 run or lose 1-0, the 1-0 loss to the Guardians. I mean, that's disgusting. It is. Those are frustrating games. Like I get that you leave those games and you ask yourself, like, how the hell do they not outscore this team in this game? Right. And so, like, when we find ourselves like begging to add like Cody Bellinger, bats like that, right? Like guys of that caliber, the Nolan Arenados, like, it just blows my mind that we're like begging for another bat, we
don't have enough.
It's like you don't have enough when you do, right? We saw it in the postseason last year that they can turn it up a level. And obviously Rhys Hoskins not there. He obviously brings some power to the lineup, some stability, but
much needed power.
Yeah, it's just flabbergasted. It's frustrating to watch games like that where the lineup is supposed to be the strength. The pitching shows up that night, for instance, and the Phillies just can't back them up at all with their lineup. And so those those would be my talking points if I'm talking about
Absolutely.
frustration. And I'm not even pinpointing one player with that because
Oh,
guys are just going through hot and cold
the top
stretches right
5.
now. Yeah.
It's the top 5, and one credit to Topper is that he basically called them out.
Yeah.
So you're not going to win games when your top 5 guys aren't hitting. They need to start to hit. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
It's 100% correct.
100%.
Last night, they didn't hit, and they somehow won the game.
Yeah.
Kyle Schwarber, 0 for 4. Trey Turner, 0 for 4. JT, 1 for 4, 3 strikeouts. Castellanos, 0 for 4. They were horrible. Scotty, I'll back your point up even further. There was a moment last night in that game, excuse me, when the 7, 8, 9 hitters, it was 2-0, and the 7, 8, 9 hitters lead off the inning with double, single, score a run, and have runners on first and second with nobody out. And the 1, 2, 3 of Kyle Schwarber, Trey Turner, and Bryce Harper didn't get a ball out of the infield. I'm with you. But it's a stretch.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. You have to hone it back in.
And I don't know
understand where you are in the season. And then digress on that.
It could be their Achilles heel, man, because they could be red hot in September, like we're hoping for them to be in the postseason, and then this stretch bites them in the ass in early October. I'm not saying it's a perfect system. For whatever reason, this team is not constructed to be a regular season team. Yeah. They are constructed to hit baseballs in the postseason. And I don't know how that correlates. I don't know how it even, how they transition into that. I don't even know why they're not built to be a regular season team when you have guys like Bryce Harper, who hit for 300, Trey Turner, who's supposed to hit for 300, Brandon Marsh and Bryson Stott are hitting for 300. Castellanos was hitting for 300. So you have all these guys who are hitting for great, or should be hitting for great averages.
Yeah.
And you're not a regular season team. It doesn't make sense to me. Their starting five's one of the deepest starting fives in baseball. I know we all love to complain about the 5th starter, but not a lot of teams can say their number 4 is Taijuan Walker.
Yeah.
Even their number 5, who people, and again, I don't love the idea or the name of Christopher Sanchez being trotted out there every 5 days, but Christopher Sanchez has like a sub-3 ERA in his last 5 starts.
Gave you 7 innings last game.
Like he's been fine for the Phillies. They just can't win those games for whatever reason. So I don't know the rhyme or reason that this team struggles in the regular season and it translates to great postseason ball. I don't know how it works, Scotty. I just know that's the case.
You know the other thing that I'm just kind of counting on in the back of my head. Maybe it's fool's gold on me, but Trey Turner, man, like at some point, right? Like at some point, because he's probably he's top 2 most frustrating players on this team, maybe the most.
Oh, it's number 1. It's number 1 for me. I mean, kind of far.
He's got to come around eventually, right? Like maybe it's around the playoffs. Like I don't know. Maybe it's September when he starts getting to his normal self. It just something's off there, and I think that's a good. I don't want to call it a positive because you want him to be on point. You want him to be himself, but it's a positive in the sense there's still room to grow within the lineup, right? Like you still can get Trey back on the right path.
1,000%. And it's funny you say that because I didn't get a chance to do it because I was driving to pick my mom up from the airport last night. But one of these games, you're going to see it. I'm not going to tell you when, and hopefully I can time this perfectly.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about tweeting out, where were you when Trey Turner turned the season around?
Yeah.
Before the game. Like, kind of calling Trey's shot for him, right? Thankfully, I didn't get the opportunity to put that out to the world last night.
Maybe it's tonight.
I have this odd blind faith, the same as you do, it seems like.
Yeah.
That he will turn it around at some point over the next 2 months.
Yeah.
And he's going to help this team.
He's too good. He's too good to be playing the way he's playing, man.
Right. And so much of this fan base, again, overreacts. Listen, I'm not saying you can't react and react negatively to how Trey Turner is performing. I'm right there with you. But again, there's something about reacting in the moment and not making it a declaration for the future.
Yeah.
There's people saying if they could do it over, they want to give him the contract, Scotty. If they could do it over, they would trade him for this, and they're better off with this person at shortstop or second. Come on, man.
We were talking about the best shortstop in baseball when we signed this man. It doesn't change over half a season, man. Like,
listen, again, I don't know the rhyme or reason for what happens, and I tweeted this out the other night. He needs a day or two off, man. And Topper apparently went to him after the ejection and said, "Do you want tomorrow off?" He said no. Kudos to him. He wants to play his way out of this, work his way out of this. That's fine, but it's not physical.
Yeah.
You can watch him. It's not a physical problem with Trey Turner. It's up here. And I don't know what it is in the water in Philadelphia, but this has just become a common freaking trend for new athletes in this city. Nick Castellanos, everything we dealt with the Sixers, Markelle Fultz, Ben Simmons, Carson Wentz. It's just a trend here, dude. I don't know why. I don't know what they eat, what they intake, but something screws these dudes up mentally for a period of time.
It's like, did the Dodgers not have more pressure on them than the Phillies? You know what I mean? Like, if it's about pressure, like mental mindset for Trey Turner, like,
because the whole new team
thing
doesn't add up to
aspirations. Like,
I agree that. Remember, Castellanos went from a new team, new location, signed late, so he moved late to whatever. Like, Trey was traded at the deadline a few years ago from Washington to the West Coast and thrived in LA for a year and a half.
Yeah.
So that whole new team and moving, but that's not adding up.
Not an excuse. Yeah.
Throw the names out, bro.
Yeah, I mean, these are the names, man. These are the stars that come to the city.
I don't get it, man. I don't know. But the whole point of the first 20 minutes of this show was, again, to try to remind you, if you're listening out there and you're hesitant about pumping the brakes with the Phillies, to just let out a deep breath, right?
Yeah.
Through the nose, out the mouth. Relax, all right? But last night specifically, Scotty, and this has been just a pleasant surprise. I don't even want to call it a surprise because we all expected the kid to take a leap, but this leap has been astounding. And I'll say this to you. There is not a player on this team that I would want up to bat with 2 outs than Bryson Stott with the game on the line. Bryce Harper.
Yeah, I was going to argue Bryce that you're, the MVP.
Outside of arguably the best player in the world at times.
Yeah.
I'm taking the 22, 23-year-old kid.
Yeah.
That's who I wanted to play last night, and he does it.
He knows how to work the plate,
again.
Man.
He does, but the beautiful thing, and shout out to the postgame show on 94 on WIP because I was listening to it. They brought up a very great point. We've seen him work those counts, and we've seen him be patient and calm and foul pitches off and extend at bats. Spencer Strider last year in the NLDS. Remember that at bat that goes to the corner, Marshall, all that. But last night was a first pitch swing. And that's the beautiful thing about this kid's baseball IQ is that he knows what his kind of not identity is, but he knows that pitchers know that this guy works counts. He extends at bats. So then pitchers try to get ahead in the count early. And how do you do that? You put something over the plate. Well, what happens last night? Something hangs right down where he wants it, and he deposits it right in the right field corner.
Yeah.
He's brilliant, dude. In the field, at the plate, there's not another Philly outside of number 3 that I trust more than Bryson Stott right now. That's crazy?
It's crazy, but when you watch it play, it just, it makes sense. I mean, like you said, he knows how to work the count, but then last night you have the situation where he hits the double at the first pitch. It shows you that it's not just him waiting for the right pitch, right? No. Like he's watching that strike zone each time. He's watching that plate, And yeah, man, what he's shooting, 300 right now. He's batting 300 average. So yeah, it's actually insane to think about. This kid is 25 years old, and he's arguably your most trustworthy player right now at the plate. It's
100%.
crazy to think. I don't know if it's like a detriment to the rest of the guys, like these other names, like,
I don't
or
think
to
so.
just
Well,
speak to how good Stott is, because there's two sides of that
yeah,
conversation. It's
I
like,
would say the gap right now speaks to
yeah,
how poorly the other guys are playing. Meaning the fact that I would take Bryson Stott by a wide margin
it's
over
Trey's
these other
at
guys.
245 right
Right.
now. So
Like that is a detriment. That is a negative to the rest of the squad, but it's also not a surprise.
yeah,
It doesn't surprise me that this kid, well, it does surprise me that he's this good, but it doesn't surprise me that he found a way to take a leap in his second year. Scotty, just over a year ago, he wasn't an everyday player. Before
yeah,
Joe Girardi was fired, Bryson Stott was started at third base, was sent down to AAA. Bryson Stott couldn't play under Joe Girardi a year and 2 months ago. And here he is hitting 300 as the best player on the team right now. And I agree. And Brett, like, it's becoming a thing, man, where again, you know that Dombrowski's going to be active at the deadline, and
yeah,
rightfully so. And from what he said, from all the reports, from what we think, he is going to target a corner outfielder, and he should. But to this kid, man, Sky, there's something cool about this kid. Again,
yeah.
like, I don't know if you said he made a catch at the wall last night in left center. 4 birds flew by his head as the ball's dropping down into his glove, and he makes the catch and smiles and jokes with Marsh. He's what, 20 years old? I don't know how
Yeah.
old Johan Rojas is, but
Let me check for you.
so if Bryce can play first base and Schwarber can DH,
22.
Marsh and Rojas, speed wise, defensively, can play left and center together. Like, there is some, like, you know what I mean? Like, there is an intrigue there as well. So it definitely softens the blow if Dombrowski's not able to go out and get a Cody Bellinger like player. I know there was a report of a Tommy Pham acquisition from the Mets, and it's, it doesn't move. Like, to me, Tommy Pham would be like a rotational bench piece, right? A bench bat.
And it's like you want a starter, right? Like you want somebody that can start.
If you're going to go make that move, yes. But
I agree. How are we feeling about Alec Boehm these days, man?
Yeah, man. Like, well,
3-game
it's
hit
funny
streak.
because one of our
The game last
past
night.
shows a few weeks ago, when we wanted to trade Alec Boehm, and listen, you still trade Alec Boehm for Nolan Arenado.
For Nolan Arenado. Like, that doesn't change because he's been on a tear since then as well.
Alec Boehm is funny to me, man, because he's one of the guys on this team that no matter how great he is at the moment, you still crave more and you still need more from him.
You know that there's more in there. That
Like,
I think,
dude,
like,
leads off the inning with the double last night, ends up scoring the first run, drives in the game-winning run with 2 outs. He's got one of the prettiest swings in baseball. He's one of the most improved fielders this year.
Yeah.
But the power. The power still isn't there. And it's all I heard all offseason long. He gained this muscle. He's got the swing. Why am I drawing a blank? Spring training. There it is. Spring training. The first game against the Rangers, he's putting balls out left and right, taking it opposite field, and it's like it's gone, man. It's like he's lost
9 homers.
It all. He lost his magic powers.
No, it is interesting, when it comes to the power with Boehm. I don't know. He's had a hit in his last 3. He's hit in 4 of his last 5. It's almost like he's heard the trade rumors in a sense, cracking it up a bit. But like you said, there's still more. It's almost untapped, right? In Alec Boehm, that's what it feels like. But he is 26 years old, so that's where that argument of untapped versus is he what he is, and then you
Correct.
talk about stars like Nolan Arenado, and then that's how you get to the equation of
Exactly.
yes, I'll trade Alec Bohm, but it's no
again,
disrespect
he's
to him.
such
That's Nolan Arenado. Like that's not just
he's
any
such an
third base.
oddball, man, because like throw that all out there. He's also got like again, we just talked about not wanting anyone else besides Bryson Stott up at the plate. Like Bohm has a clutch. I feel again with 2 outs and runners in scoring position. Like, would you rather have Alec Bohm or JT Realmuto? Rather have Alec Bohm.
Yeah.
Would you rather have Alec Bohm or Kyle Schwarber?
Alec Bohm.
Alec Bohm. Would you rather have Alec Bohm or Trey Turner right now?
Yeah,
Alec
Bohm. Yeah. So what?
He's
It's
still
probably
one of the clutcher.
Bryce, and then
Bryce, Stott, and Bohm.
and then Bohm.
Right,
Your top
exactly.
3 clutch hitters.
So
Yeah, because
Bohm's
Trey
such
Turner,
an
that's
oddball
like
to
the
me,
last
man.
spot where I trust him right now is with runners in scoring position,
Oh yeah, bro.
or game on the line, whatever the case may be. Yeah, I'm not feeling that right now. Same with Castellanos. He's just in a bad spot right now as well.
Yep.
But
No, I agree, man.
2
But
guys that can turn it around, as we know.
With that said, where were you when Trey Turner turned the season around? Doesn't happen tonight, Scotty. They try to win the series versus the Killer Bees, man.
Look, and then they got the Pirates. They got the Pirates after the Orioles, man. So
Brett, that is a great merch idea, by the way.
An opportunity to yeah, that actually is a very nice merch idea. Yeah. Wow. Stott, Bohm, and Bryce.
Yes, sir.
Bryce, and Bohm.
Yep. With that said, man, they look for the win against the Orioles tonight. We'll be back on Friday morning to find out together if they did that.
I told them, I want them to win tonight. This is a big game for me. How about that?
Absolutely. But second half of the show before we wrap up, obviously, we got you, bro. We'll send over a contract for you.
We'll send you the royalties.
Yeah. The Eagles report to training camp yesterday.
Yes,
First
sir.
practice this morning. Nick Sirianni speaks in, well, they say 35 minutes, but Nick's never on time. So probably around 45 minutes, he'll be on the podium. But this feels right. This feels good, dude. And let me throw this out to you. I know I asked you a few weeks ago kind of what your excitement level was, where you were heading into this, but can you tell me when was the last time you were this amped for Eagles training camp? Post Super Bowl season, I would imagine, right?
Yeah.
But again,
probably last year. I mean, like, to be honest, I was really excited, but it was more of like an optimistic, hopeful.
Yes, there's a difference.
This year, it's more of a confident and let's get it on.
Right. It's almost like it's fun, but it's almost like business-like.
Yeah. Like I'm ready. We'll go through this, 18-week season, 17-game season. We'll iron out these wins to get us into the playoffs, and then it's go time, man.
Yep.
Like, it is very business-like. It's very confident. But that's what this organization has been able to put together. And I've instilled my trust wholeheartedly into this organization. Out of all of the other ones in this city, I have full and wholeheartedly enlisted my trust into this team because they have leadership at the top. And I think that's the biggest thing.
I was just going to throw that to you. That's a beautiful point because every Eagles fan right now has all their confidence in the 3 pillars of this franchise.
Yeah.
And that is your franchise quarterback, your head coach, and your GM.
Yeah. Spot on.
All 3 of them are at the peak of their positions, right? Jalen Hurts, top 3, top 4, top 5 quarterback, wherever you want to put him, MVP caliber season last year. Nick Sirianni, best coach in the division, one of the best coaches in the NFC, wherever he ranks, league-wide. We can get into that another day. Howie Roseman, best GM in the league. Argue with the wall behind me.
Yeah.
So when you have the confidence in the 3 pillars of your organization, that's key. And then you kind of look around the room. And Scotty, there hasn't been a more talented team maybe in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And I don't want to throw out dream team expectations. Excuse me. They were great the Super Bowl year. The offseason acquisitions, the in-season trade for J.J., they were fantastic that year, and you had hopes and expectations, and then they win the Super Bowl in large part due to that depth that we were talking about, and that was fantastic. They came back the following year. Yes, injured still, but lots of talent. Last year, you mentioned your excitement and your optimism for last year. Scotty, they're more talented. And it's what you know, right? Like, to your point, last year, you see the Hassan Reddick signing, you see the A.J. Brown trade, the James Bradbury signing, you get C.J. Gardner-Johnson in about, a month's time from now, right?
Yeah.
And you're looking all around the room, and you're excited for what could be, but you have question marks at the quarterback position, at the head coach spot, and you have to see it because they were a first-round exit. They were brutalized in a first-round exit the year prior.
By the Bucs.
But now that you just witnessed them have 2 10-point leads in a Super Bowl, you know now what the peak, what the ceiling of this team is, and that is the mountaintop. So when you know that and you combine that with being the most talented team of my lifetime, I've never experienced something like this because I can't decide. I can't defer being excited from, like I said, that business, like, let's go win a ball game, if that makes sense.
I wanted to ask you a question about this exactly. Brett's comment here. So Sean Desai, obviously, Brian Johnson on the offensive coordinator spot for the new offensive coordinator, excuse me. Is there any concern that comes along? Because we haven't really touched on that so far, when we've talked about the Eagles and, just the turnover of your offensive and defensive coordinators. Now, obviously, Jonathan Gannon didn't go out on the highest note. We understand that. And I'm sure we're just ready for a fresh scene on the defensive side of the ball, which is fine and fair. But on the offensive side, Shane Steichen did pretty well last year, calling plays, helping Sirianni out, helping Jalen Hurts out. Is there any concern there with just the turnover, trying to build new chemistry, trying to build those relationships again in order to get the same results that we started seeing last season?
There's a little bit of concern and worry, right? Because there are going to be some new installments, but I'll start with the offensive side first and Brian Johnson. Like, that, to me, I think that move could possibly get more out of Jalen Hurts, which is crazy to say. Because, again, what was Shane Steichen in this offense, right? What was he the mastermind behind it, right? Like, remember when Frank Reich left and he was kind of he was the Carson Wentz whisperer and he was the mastermind behind Doug's offense and blah, blah, blah. Was Steichen the mastermind, or was that a collective group kind of scheme and everything like that? And he just took over play calling duties because Nick, struggled managing everything in his first year, right? Remember when Nick tried to be a first-time head coach and be the play caller? It didn't work out too well. He delegated. He gave it to Steichen. So we're going to find out what Shane Steichen was in this system. But the fact that Brian Johnson has that basically lifelong familiarity with Jalen Hurts, and he's been, like, it's not like he just came in like Sean Desai. He's been there. I think it could get more out of Hurts. Now, the comment here decides the interesting one.
Yeah, the question
because you've heard kind of the rumors when they first brought him in that he's Gannon-like. They do a lot of things schematically the same. But when you hear players come on here and talk about him in this light, more of a teacher, interactive, A, it's probably a shot at Jonathan Gannon a little bit. And B, yes, it's exciting to hear that because, again, if he's Gannon-like schematically, there's a familiarity with the players in the system already.
Yeah.
Now, if this coach can be more of a teacher and get more out of that defense in the scheme that they're semi-familiar with, now you're talking about something even more exciting. So to answer your question, there's definitely some concern, but I will say this. The optimism I have in the upside of these two now outweigh the concern because I think these two, meaning Brian Johnson and Sean Desai as the new coordinators, I believe they raised the ceiling of their groups on offense and defense. than what Gannon and Steichen, if they were back, would have, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that the upside that you face with those guys
Yeah.
is a little bit higher than the upside of bringing just your regular coordinators back. There is a downside with
It's
it as
couldn't be
well. We
more
just don't
true,
know.
bro.
Yeah, that's a funny comment because it's almost like it doesn't matter who the offensive coordinator is when you have Nick Sirianni and then you have Jeff Stoutland as the offensive line coordinator. And the offensive line is obviously the trenches, I should say, are the biggest part of this team. It's the biggest and best part of this team, and it's what stabilizes the team. So yeah, I would agree
Right.
with that comment. And to Brett's point here with the Reddick video where he's fired up, I think that's another point to make with this Eagles team where everybody talks about the turnover. You take Hargrave out, blah, blah, blah. There's guys that are set to grow within the team, right? Like Hassan Reddick had an incredible season last year. It was his first year in Philadelphia. Now, mind you, it's a different coordinator, so he'll have to learn to work with that coordinator just like it would be a first season anyways, but he's playing with the same team and mostly the same teammates. And I think that speaks to a big uptick as well. I mean, from Hassan Reddick to James Bradbury getting more comfortable opposite of Slay. Now, they'll have to figure out the safety tandem. They'll have to figure out how they're going to work together with those guys. But as far as Slay and Bradbury being on the same page, that's always going to be a thing. AJ Brown, another year building that connection, that repertoire, that chemistry with Jalen Hurts, I think is another thing that just doesn't get talked about, right? Like, oh, they went to the Super Bowl their first year, blah, blah, blah. It's only down from that. No, it's not. It's actually, that was the crazy thing about going to the Super Bowl last year was that it's up from there. And that's the thing that I'm looking at here, not only with the new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, but you do have some guys in place that were first-year guys last year, even down to the rookies, right? Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, set to take big leaps this year as well. These guys are going to grow within the team as well,
Absolutely.
and I think that's something to pinpoint there too.
Well, that's kind of one of the more intriguing things about this roster that Howie Roseman has put together. Is just I remember, was it at the end of last year, post Super Bowl, someone had put together a list of the Eagles, future, the Eagles over the next 4 or 5 years and the ages. And I mean, I think that the average age was like 27 or something of their key players, 26.
Yeah.
When you're talking about Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, some of the, Landon Dickerson, some of these guys on the defensive side. And it's like, holy shit. So to your point, even if some of these guys don't take a step, even if they don't improve in year 2 or however long they've been here, there's no decline coming, right?
Yeah.
Like when you talk about Jalen Hurts in year 3 after that performance he put out last year, maybe you don't expect a jump, but I tell you what, you're not going to get a decline.
Yeah.
AJ Brown in year 2, you're not going to get a decline. Devontae Smith in year 3, you're not going to get a decline, if that makes sense.
To Brett's point, you add a running back with different capabilities than the running backs you had last year, right?
Well,
that's a big
brings
thing.
that up.
It's a big thing. DeAndre
It's
Swift,
interesting
man,
he
that's
brings
a
that
game
up, man.
changer.
Because when you talk about training camp, what is the number one thing everyone's minds go to? Position battles. We love our position battles. And obviously, we have positions with some flaws, some weaknesses to them. On the defensive side of the ball, you look at linebacker, you look at safety. What's going to happen at those two spots, pending, possibly a Howie Roseman move, but that's not on the table right now, right? Well, we're going to look at some of the other.
Buda Baker will be an Eagle.
Yeah.
He will be an Eagle. It's only a matter of time. But yeah, to your point.
Let's start with Brett's point right here. Let's get into who is going to be the RB1 of this Eagles team to start the season, Scotty. And it's a consensus, right? We all agree that it's going to be a rotation. We know that year in and year out. We know they're all going to touch the ball. They're all going to see playing time. But who is your RB1? Who starts the game? Who gets the most touches, et cetera, man? I'm going to throw it to you because I know this is a very interesting kind of close to home scenario for you.
Yeah, because you got my guy Gainwell, who's been here. Obviously, the wifey knows his wife, and we've been able to meet and hang out and stuff like that. So I have a little warm spot for Kenneth Gainwell. I want him to succeed. I want him to get the opportunities that he deserves because he showed some stuff last year. But DeAndre Swift is your RB1. Rashad Penny, he's going to be in the battle as long as he's healthy. He's another guy that has some potential to be unlocked in this offense. But DeAndre Swift, when I look at him, if he's healthy as well, right? Those are the big question marks with those guys. I look at him as the most talented back on the roster. You got Boston Scott still there as well. I don't want to forget him. But DeAndre Swift just presents a different facet, as Brett mentioned. The receiving game out of the backfield, it's a game changer. And when you throw a guy like that into the backfield with Jalen Hurts and you're able to run some of those RPOs, the swing actions, all of that, motioning out into the slot against the linebacker, like these are the things, these are the mismatches that Nick Sirianni is going to absolutely love and take advantage of. So to Brett's point, this is exactly where I'm at. Now, I don't know. I'm mixing Gainwell in there a little bit more than just giving it all to DeAndre and Penny. Just because he knows the system, he knows these players. He's a versatile back as well. But I think the overlying statement here is DeAndre Swift, RB1. What he presents, the options that he presents are unlimited. And I think to that point, he's going to get most of those RB1 stats. He should start the game. I'm interested to see how the Eagles will approach it, because if you look at how the Lions approached it, what I would imagine the Lions would have done is run Rashad Penny into the ground and then use DeAndre Swift sparingly.
Yep.
I'm not operating like that. I think the talent level, the potential of DeAndre Swift is too high in this offense for us to like put him behind anyone. I think you have to put him out there on the forefront. Saw LaShawn McCoy actually talking about it the other day, and he was talking about how he thinks DeAndre Swift is ready to really take his spot in the NFL with this Eagles offense. And he spoke to the injuries in the past, but spoke to the top level potential of him. He's a top 5 potential back in this league.
Yep.
The size, the speed, the shiftiness, the elusiveness. He is a top level back. We have to get him out there and give him the opportunities to shine. And I think he will, man. So to answer your question, DeAndre Swift all the way. Dynasty stocks are up. And I think he's going to eat behind this offensive line. And it's a contract year for him. There's a lot of things pointing in his direction. You could say a lot of the same things for Rashad Penny as well. I'm way higher on DeAndre Swift personally.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. I think DeAndre Swift will and should be RB1 coming out of camp and this season. I'm on the ESPN depth chart right now for the Eagles, and it's exactly how I would have it. DeAndre Swift, Rashad Penny, Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott. And I do, man. Gainwell is going to get playing time. He should get playing time. He's familiar with the system. He brings something different to this team, right? In that position group. But there are so many people out there, man, on Eagles Twitter that think he could be RB1 or RB2, and I need to try to understand these people mentally. I mean no disrespect to Kenneth Gainwell. When has Kenneth Gainwell ever ran for 1,000 yards? If you gave Kenneth Gainwell more responsibility, do you ever think Kenneth Gainwell is running for 1,000 yards? I'll tell you my side. No, I don't.
In this offense, with this offensive line, I do think just about any NFL level running back could get 1,000 yards behind this offensive line. But
that's a fair
that's an argument for another day.
But if so, again, I'm not trying to be an asshole. If Kenneth Gainwell could rush for 1,000, then Rashad Penny could rush for 1,700 behind this offensive line. Like, it's DeAndre Swift, it's Rashad Penny, it's Kenneth Gainwell. He's going to get playing time. He should touch the ball, but he's not better than DeAndre Swift, and he's not better than Rashad Penny. Again, health pending. We know the question marks surrounding the first two guys. Gainwell hasn't had those issues. I get that. But I'm telling you, if they're all healthy, if they're all able to be on the field, he is the third guy. Why is DeAndre Swift first? For all the reasons you threw out on the table, right? All the different things he can do, and not just as a runner, because he is, man. Like, it got lost in Detroit for whatever reason. And again, maybe they lost confidence in his ability to stay healthy if he touches the ball this many times, etc. He's a pure runner, Scotty.
Yeah.
Like he can catch the ball out of the backfield. You can line him up in the slot, send him on a slant, a screen, whatever. But he's a pure runner. We saw it week 1. I think it was the first play of the game or second play of the game against this Eagles defense last year. He busts out a 68-yard run or something.
Yeah.
He's a very, very, very skilled, pure running back that has big playability, that can hide behind the and get in between the tackles, right? But he can also catch the ball better than any running back we've probably had since Darren Sproles, right? Yeah. So that's why he would be RB1. The end, like you mentioned again, the upside, right? Because I'm with you. I don't have him in a dynasty fantasy football league like you do, but I am with you the fact that like there's not many running backs that I think have more upside. Like if DeAndre Swift gets the ball the way he should, I think DeAndre Swift is a top 10 running back in this league.
Yeah.
If he gets the ball consistently. So when you're talking like that, he's RB1 for me, man. Yeah, and listen, I like this comparison a little bit as well. Gainwell, you sparingly likes like I'm with it, Brett.
Gainwell feels to me like the guy as you get to the latter parts of the season, wear and tear on the first two guys, right? That's when you start to uptick Gainwell a little bit. When those guys are starting to get worn down on the season, if you want to spare some of these guys before we get to the
you know who Gainwell is? Gainwell's Corey Clement.
Yeah,
that's who Gainwell is.
I like that. I like that.
And again, that's why I was trying to say I don't mean disrespect because there is there could be a major role for him. Look what Corey Clement did in the Super Bowl.
He's just got to take advantage of his opportunities. They're going to be sparingly with these.
But that year, you had what? You had LeGarrette Blount and J.A. Those were your twos, but Clement still got on the field. That's what should happen this year.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's one of those things where, yes, you wouldn't start Gainwell over those two backs, but if they go down for a week and you have to use Gainwell, that is perfectly fine. If you have to even bring Boston Scott into the equation, that is perfectly fine. They have a great running back room. It's as simple as that. Boston Scott on up to DeAndre Swift. That running back room is great.
And Howie Roseman somehow figured out a way to pay all 4 of those guys the same amount of money as Miles Sanders got this year in Carolina. So I know it's kind of like a hot topic right now with running backs in the NFL, but
the good thing about the running back room is that one of DeAndre Swift or Rashad Penny is going to hit. Like one of those guys.
Right. Law of averages say one of those two stay healthy for this team, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. So one of those guys is going to earn their paycheck. They're going to eat. They're going to become the RB1 of this Eagles roster. I would go with DeAndre Swift being that guy, but we just don't know. We can't predict injuries. We can't predict how things are going to play out.
It's a beautiful thing, man.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's so beautiful to sit here and go, you know what? I would give the ball to DeAndre Swift. But just in case it's not working, just in case he bangs up his knee in training camp, 1,200-yard Rashad Penny in 10 games is here to save the day. Like it's unbelievable. Let's stay on the offensive side of the ball because we do got to speed this up a little bit because you do have to get to your day job shortly.
Yeah.
Wide receiver 3. Another little hot topic here that it's kind of been a topic of conversation for some time now. For the Eagles, right? And it's 2 guys. It's Quez Watkins, who was your wide receiver 3 of last year, and it's the new guy that they brought in from Atlanta, Olamide Zaccheaus. Scotty, who do you think is going to be wide receiver 3? Not who you want to be wide receiver 3, but who do you think is wide receiver 3?
So there's part of me that thinks that they're going to enlist their trust into Quez Watkins and ride with the guy that's been here. And I think that's fair to a sense. Quez Watkins, he had a down year last year, and down year, even to his expectations, weren't extremely high. So it's not a great thing. It's not okay for Quez to have a down year, right? Down year could mean that he's off the team from his position, but nonetheless, he's here. Nick Sirianni appears to have a ton of faith in Quez in the big moments, man. It's just like what I said with Gainwell. You have to take advantage of your minimum opportunities. We're talking about Quez Watkins. We're talking about wide receiver 3. they're going to be option 5 to 6 to 7 in this offense in reality. You look at A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Jalen Hurts legs, DeAndre Swift out of the backfield, even Rashad Penny. Those are going to be your top level targets, guys that are going to have the ball. So the opportunities for wide receiver 3 are going to be far few in between, meaning Quez Watkins cannot do what he did last year. And he couldn't do what he did last season. Like we couldn't, it's not like we could afford it last season.
It turned out to be extremely costly. Yeah.
It cost us 2 of our 3 losses on the season. Mm-hmm. Like it's a lot bigger than what it should be for a wide receiver 3. I do think Quez is going to get the nod, though. I just think as long as he performs in camp, as long as he looks up to par in camp, Nick Sirianni is going to enlist that trust in him. There is a side of me that wants to see what Zaccheaus is about. I mean, he outperformed Quez last year in an Atlanta offense with a quarterback who even know? Like, what? Mariota? Like, is that your quarterback? Is it Desmond Ridder? Whoever the hell was throwing him the ball last year still had more production than Quez Watkins. Now probably got a lot more opportunity. Let's be fair. No Calvin Ridley in that offense last year.
Right. No, 110% he did.
Drake London, rookie in his first season. So the targets were probably split pretty fairly between those guys. There's part of me that wants to see what he would look like in this offense. I don't know if that's me making him wide receiver 3 per se, but he's going to get some opportunities. Quez is going to lose some opportunities. So maybe the answer for me would be they're both going to be wide receiver 3. They're going to do split opportunities. They'll both play that role at some point, right? Where are you at with this, though?
We're 2 for 2, man. I agree with everything you just laid out. I think Quez Watkins is your day 1 wide receiver 3, and I think it's strictly because that's who Nick Sirianni is. Nick Sirianni is a player's coach. He instills faith and belief in his guys until they make him take that away. And I think Quez Watkins, you heard it in April, in May, when they were talking about how Quez Watkins is so motivated and how great he's looked, blah, blah, blah. That's great.
Yeah.
I think Quez Watkins gets the nod as wide receiver 3, and I think at some point he loses it.
Okay.
Because I'm not trying to, again, crush another role player on this team, right? But I don't know where this blind faith from Eagles fans came for Quez Watkins.
Yeah.
Because before last year, I don't think it's as deep anymore because of all the mistakes and the Super Bowl, right? Like, I don't think that many fans stand behind Quez anymore.
Because it's blind faith.
But Scotty, there were people last year that told us Quez Watkins could be a wide receiver 2 on a lot of teams.
Yeah, no.
That Quez Watkins was going to step up to the plate and do this and do that. And now there are still believers that he's going to bounce back. Oh, that's good for you, man. And I hope so. There'd be nothing better than, to be able to use both of these guys. I think Quez Watkins is not a sure-handed receiver. I think he has big playability. I think to Brett's point, he's a good blocker, and Sirianni values that. But I think Quez Watkins has some issues in this department. And when you talk about how his opportunities to make plays and help his team are going to be, limited, you can't have hands issues. You can't lack confidence in that department. So if Zaccheaus, who, let's be honest with you, I know Quez Watkins thinks he's like the fastest player in the NFL for some reason. Zaccheaus might be faster from what I've seen in Atlanta. He might have more big playability, and he looks more sure-handed. I think Quez Watkins starts the season as wide receiver 3. And I think he loses it at some point in the season. I still think both of them see the field, right? It's not a one or the other. But when we're talking just pure who is locked into this spot per se, that's kind of the route I would go. Both guys are going to play, though.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. I agree with what Brett said here. The new guys will need to learn the scheme, so that will take time, and Quez's role will be more in danger. Yeah, and it depends on Zaccheaus too, right? If he comes out, drops his first opportunity, maybe it pushes it back. But I just don't see that happening. He had a great season in Atlanta last year. Had 40 catches. I think Quez had 33.
And I'll even throw out
more
another
yards
point.
per catch.
I'll throw out another point to help Zaccheaus, right? Who's the backup quarterback for the Eagles now?
Mariota, he has that connection.
So who gets to work with him all summer long and help him learn this playbook more quickly, more
Yeah,
effectively, who he's familiar with?
yeah,
Could be a huge help and,
yeah,
and have that comfortability with somebody throughout the summer that can then
yeah.
translate to regular season football when you've gotten everything down
And
pat.
he just, I don't know. Quez, they try to run him on these screens. He's such like a little receiver. Olamide, he's shorter. He's shorter than Quez, but he's a much stockier guy, right? And he seems to be more built for those type of screen passes that they like to do. So yeah, I don't know. Last season I liked Quez. I wasn't like some Quez stan. I didn't, wide receiver 2. Like, no, I'm not
Listen,
going that far. But he's a questionable wide receiver 3 at this point. And I mean, you would prefer him to be wide receiver 4 in
right.
reality
Oh,
if you want to
listen,
feel
there's,
stable.
I would expect times.
I like Quez. It's just,
I like Quez. He's fine, but I don't get
yeah,
the
he
the
doesn't
over talk,
do it
the
for
hype
me.
up of Quez, right?
Yeah.
I
The
could
ball
see
with his chest.
times where Nick wants to spread this defense out and says, "Here you go."
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
that's my thing about this team is, I'm a huge believer in stars make plays, right?
Yeah.
Stars make money. I'm not a big, back up this and depth guy that's going to step up and have a huge year. But when it comes to this Eagles team, how star heavy they are, but
Yeah.
the fact that they have all this depth, like, dude, again, I'm just picturing a set where you have AJ and Smitty. AJ's outside and Smitty's in the slot on the other side. Zacchaeus is in the slot next to AJ and Quez is outside. And you
Yeah.
just spread them wide, right? No running back. How are you stopping that?
Yeah.
How are you stopping that?
Yeah, that's the crazy part of this team, man. I
Um,
am I am gonna say I just hope one of these receivers, whether it's Zacchaeus or Quez, can just step up
yep.
and be similar, right? Similar to this, because I agree with what Marshawn Lynch is saying here. Smitty and Gamewell, I mean, they obviously showed up in the playoffs huge. Jalen Hurts, of course. But can we get somebody to become that sure-handed wide receiver 3 where if the ball is getting thrown to them and late in the game, I don't have to sit here and panic while the ball is in the air. Like, that's what I want to feel. I want to feel Jason Avant type of security level from my wide receiver 3,
Yep.
my slot receiver. And I'm just hoping one of those guys can fulfill that. Obviously, Smitty is that possession type of guy as well, so maybe there's no role for it. But
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out because I think, if nothing less, Zacchaeus just adds competition to Quez to make Quez better, right? And that's what you want from all of these guys to push each other further. So
All right, one more position group.
yeah,
On Friday's show, we'll get into kind of Isaac Sayamala's replacement and everything like that because there's
yeah,
a deep conversation there. But CB4, and I know this doesn't sound interesting. This isn't sexy by any stretch of the imagination, but
yeah,
I think CB4 is going to play a very critical role for this team because, again, I want to knock on wood here, but Scotty, as you laid out before, both of these corners stayed healthy all year long last year.
yeah.
Knock on wood, I would love for that to happen again.
You
The
just don't get
likelihood
that lucky.
is the law of averages say one of them is going to miss some time at least. So you're talking
Yeah,
Darius Slay, you're talking James Bradbury, you're talking Avonte Maddox as that third corner, that slot kind of guy.
yeah,
Who plays after that? And we know they're going to play regardless. Like these guys aren't playing 100% of the snaps anyway. So who can come on the field and be that next guy up? All right. Is it
yeah,
Greedy Williams, who they signed in the early on in the offseason? Is it Zach with an E, McPherson? Is it the rookie, Kelly Ringo, who's something kind of play a hybrid safety corner kind of deal? And then you have the guys that are still going to make this roster for the 18th straight year, it feels like, in Josh Joby and Josiah Scott. Yes, I know they're both young. It just feels like these names have just been thrown out there forever. Who do you think is kind of that guy that steps up and is that backup role player type of corner for this Eagles team?
yeah. I think to start the season, we're gonna see Greedy Williams in that role just because he's the vet, right? Like he's the guy that's been around. He's the guy that I would imagine is gonna pick up the system faster than say a Kelly Ringo. But I do think mid-season, towards the end of the season, we could see Kelly Ringo kind of fit into that role, kind of slide
He
into
just
that
feels
role.
like a steal, doesn't he?
Yeah, it
Like
feels like he's going to be that guy that can be that quality backup to these guys, and maybe in the future become one of the starting CBs once one of these guys moves on. So, yeah, I think it starts out Greedy Williams. He's the vet, right? He's going to come in. He's going to set the standard. He's going to be able to pick up the system faster. But then I think as Keely Ringo gets accustomed to the Eagles and how they work, the culture, how the practices goes, how the scheme fits, where he fits into the scheme, I think he's going to slide into that CB4 role, that backup outside corner role. And that's the positive of bringing in a guy like that so late in the draft. I saw mock drafts where he was like a first round top 20 pick. I mean, that's the type of ceiling that Ringo carries coming out of the fourth or fifth round where they drafted him. It's actually ridiculous. But yeah, I would love to see Keely Ringo by the end of the season take over that backup corner role. If maybe one of them does go down, maybe he is the guy that eventually slides into a starting spot by the end of the season. We see something special there. But I think Greedy Williams will take it to start the season.
So we go 3 for 3. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a guy on this roster that's going to be just a better outside corner.
He's a special teams guy. Like that's what he's looking like to me right now.
Right. Hasn't, proven anything from that position so far in his young career. If anything, he's actually been a little bit of a negative on the outside. But he is going to make the team for special teams reasons.
Yeah.
Same thing. Josh Jobe and Josiah Scott will play a little bit. I'm sure you'll see them as CB5 at some point or something like that. But dude, the Keely Ringo thing is so interesting, and it kind of brings up the last topic of the day before we wrap up here. And it has to do with camp, but also just has to do with what Howie Roseman accomplished in this stretch, Scotty. I'm just going down the list of these names. It doesn't even feel like there's a bust coming from this draft class that he just put together. You look at the 2 first-round picks, and we both have very high expectations for their careers. You look at Tyler Steen, who we're going to get into on Friday, could legitimately play day one in place of Isaac Seumalo. If not, he's going to be a very valuable depth piece to this offensive line.
Yeah.
We just talked about Keely Ringo. I agree with you. Like, he just feels like some underlying story. Like, under the radar steal of this draft, right?
Yeah.
Sidney Brown, hard-hitting safety from what? Was it Auburn or Illinois? Where one of those 2 schools. Forget where he came from.
Yeah, I think it was Illinois.
One of the orange and blue. I know that.
Yeah.
Sidney.
Yeah, it was Illinois. I just checked.
It doesn't feel like he missed, man. And I'm looking at the depth chart again, and I know in the beginning of the offseason, before he re-signed anybody, before the draft, before all of that, it doesn't seem like those guys. It didn't seem like those guys were going to be difference makers. But when you look at this defense now with all the stars on it, and you talk about a Greedy Williams, and you talk about a Christian, Nicholas Morrow, and you talk about a Terrell Edmonds, those are winning in the margin types of moves for me, man.
Yeah.
They're depth pieces. A guy like Terrell Edmonds could start if you need him to. Yeah. I loved everything that Howie has done. Obviously, we're going to be talking training camp every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here, so we're not going to hit every point today. But I can't wait, man.
About time for that Nick Sirianni interview, so we'll
yes, sir,
be right in time for that.
Yes, sir. Everybody, a little quick prayer circle that the Eagles make it through training camp healthy this year. And that is going to wrap it up for this Wednesday edition of the Phaithful Phanatics Show. Guys, do not forget to check out our friends over at Manscaped. Use promo code DSM at checkout for 20% off your total order and free shipping at manscaped.com. Again, promo code DSM for 20% off your total order plus free shipping over at manscaped.com. Let them know that your friends here at DSM sent you. For myself, for Scotty, don't forget to subscribe to the DSM Philadelphia YouTube channel and subscribe to the DSM-Media Turf Talk channel. We will be back tomorrow night on the Turf Talk channel, bringing you our top 10 running backs heading into the 2023 season, as well as breaking down the AFC West division.
Let's go.
Myself and Scotty, have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Go Birds, go Fightins'.